Come on, come on, come on, come on now, Mackenzie. You can't. I was hoping for a la la Lamar.
It just froze me. I was unprepared. Oh, okay. La la Lamar.
Oh, nailed it. Yeah. I wonder if the band would think that I sound just like Jim Morrison, how Val Kilmer did. But we are in a time crunch today. We know that we got to get out of here early. So I'm going to give you a pretty quick cold open. In front of you stand 4 doors. Okay?
You mean the members of the Doors?
No, like 4 literal doors. So it's 4 actual doors numbered from 1 to 4. Which one do you open? You can only open one. This is unlike you. You can't open 3 doors.
I was going to say, God damn it. 3. My gut says 3.
All right, cool. That's it. Thanks for playing. Okay, let's get to the show.
I'm so glad we did this. Let's roll. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are kicking off a whole new month here on the pod that if you listened to our last episode, we teased and explained a little bit. But we're going to spend the month of May celebrating the filmography of one Mr. Val Kilmer. So he, if you didn't know, recently passed. This is not the only reason we're doing this, and this won't be a recurring theme.
Yeah, we had movies of his we were planning to do anyway, and we were looking for a month that made sense.
Right. So we just decided the time was right. So we're going to start and kick things off this month with what many think is an incredible performance by Val Kilmer here as one Jim Morrison in The Doors.
Yeah.
So...
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that today. It's a great performance. The rest of the movie, we'll talk about it.
We have some thoughts, but I do feel like it's a performance of his that we have to cover. So, but yes, no spoilers. We'll get there for sure. So, what's powering us through this one today, Lamar?
Yeah, so our cocktail, as always, is coming from at Craft World. And this one, if you want a little caffeine in the middle of the afternoon, here we go. So we're calling this Mr. Mojo Rising. And in this is 2 ounces of Irish whiskey, which, again, eagle-eyed viewers will notice that's mostly what Jim Morrison... actually, Skylar's the one that called that out, so good on him. I just knew Jim Morrison was an alcoholic from this movie. I didn't pick up on the fact that it was always...
Didn't really pay attention to what he was drinking, just that he was drinking.
Amongst other vices. So 2 ounces of preferably Irish whiskey, half an ounce of coffee liqueur, half an ounce of simple, 2 dashes of orange bitters, 2 dashes of Ango bitters, and then you can smoke it as well if you want a little bit of that mist, that fog on there. And I did not realize this. I found this on like the IMDb facts. I've known that song for probably 2-3 decades at this point, and I never knew that Mr. Mojo Rising was an anagram for Jim Morrison. Never knew that.
Yeah.
So, fun fact.
Yep. Fun fact for you guys. We're cutting it deep with these cocktail names, y'all. You are welcome. So, all right. Well, like we said, we're going to...
Do you want to cheers, or do we just not give a fuck this week?
Oh,
we're not in that much of a rush, but we still have to drink, Mackenzie.
I don't know. You have me so thrown off. You're like, we have to be done by X time. Okay. All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
And look, I am really on theme as well. So if y'all didn't know, Jim Morrison is super obsessed with
so
death.
By the end of the movie, he's a skeleton. Is that what you're saying? What the fuck?
Kind of a little bit. Okay. But he's just very obsessed with death. Okay, cheers.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you were going to say. Sorry.
No, but I have so many death themes happening today. We'll get there to the other ones. But yes, he's obsessed with death. So we're leaning in hard on that one.
Also, pause. That drink, Craft World, very tasty. He said it was a spin on an old fashioned, but it tastes closer to an espresso martini, and I'm here for it.
It's a very coffee-y old fashioned. It's delicious. And I didn't, fun fact, make mine this week. So they're even better when he does it.
Everything's better when somebody else does it for you. Yeah.
Oh, that's so true. Anyways. Okay. So we're talking about The Doors, 1991. Got decent mixed ratings. 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb. And we got 56% from critics, 79% from audiences. So we'll get into like kind of runs the gambit, and I think we'll maybe touch on why, right? Like there are some reasons for that. Like we said, his performance is awesome. but the film itself has some work to be done.
Yeah.
So
Also, we don't have to make this a thing, but I'm on Letterboxd now. If anybody wants to add me on there and share movie ideas,
I'm not even
suggestions.
friends with you on
Well,
Letterboxd.
it's
What's
brand new.
happening?
It's a new phase of my journey into cinema, but it's like a
Mm.
3.3 or 3.2 on there, and that is the one that I think I would agree the most with. Not to spoil my rating at the end here, but I'm like, that's kind of in line with my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go
Oh,
that
and I'm
far.
sorry, that's out of 5, so it's more like a
Okay.
6.4 out of 10 based on our rating scale.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, that's closer.
Yeah.
That's closer. I was like, that feels really harsh. I'm going to be honest with you, but okay. Yeah, I would say that's closer for me as well, if that's out of 5 for sure.
That'd be
So
sad if we started Val Kilmer month and I was like, fuck this movie.
3 out of 10. Oh my god. We're going to have a great time. So clearly. Okay, well, we're going to do it is a little bit older, but I feel like, do you feel like we need a spoiler-free section? I feel like, or should we
I
just dive
don't.
right in?
I mean, it's also based on real life events that happened 60 years ago, so.
It's also wildly inaccurate, so let's just be real.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Careful
Well,
there.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. Turn around. Don't drown. It's spoiler time. Mostly because I don't know how to filter some of these out. Because to your point, a lot of it's real. But this is directed by one Mr. Oliver Stone. He also co-wrote it, but he directed this. It's very Oliver Stoney if you are into his work at all. He did in the same year, actually, one that I really love, but is also historically inaccurate, which is JFK.
Does JFK survive at the end?
No, but like he asserts that this whole case happened a certain way and that we were trying to prove this conspiracy of the JFK assassination, and I'm like, none of that happened that way. Anyways, but it's like, if you like a Kevin Costner, which y'all all know your girl does, it's a good time. He also did Platoon, Born on the 4th of July. Like, he's got a style. If that's
Natural Born Killers, probably my favorite.
Natural Born Killers, yeah.
It's dark,
Natural Born Killers.
and it's a sad, depressing, and frustrating watch, but I liked that movie when I was younger.
But it's well done, yeah. So I think that's a good call out. It was co-written by Randall Johnson, which has like 4 different spellings of his name. So it's either Johnson or Jansen, depending on where you find his name. So I don't know. Do with that what you will. But he's written a bunch of things, including The Mask of Zorro, which is the
Classic.
Antonio Banderas one. Is so good. I was like, ooh, we need to watch that. Like, as soon as I read that, I was like, we got to watch that. I love that movie. So he did that one as well. And then we get into, I kind of mostly focused on some of the members of the band here in a quick cover of the major cast and crew, but just Val Kilmer is in this, obviously, as one Jim Morrison. And it just has to be said, like, he embodies him in this film. He like looks exactly like him almost. He really just has his voice, as they said multiple times. And I think we do want to be clear, like, he does miss some of the good things about Jim Morrison. There's a lot of like just the dark and twisty of his life, but people have said, overall the performance is really solid.
He spent like a year prepping for this, and I think that shows.
Yeah, I mean, to the degree that he was in character for a year is what they said, and he actually had to seek therapy kind of to get out of Jim Morrison's head. He like went and saw a psychiatrist afterward of like, I need to disconnect from this character, which, if you're being very method about it, I can sort of see that. But yeah, he really immersed himself in the character. So, and because we're going to talk about Val Kilmer all month long, I just want to mention one each time and not the ones that we're covering. So his first film was Top Secret, which we did
debate. Yeah,
we did debate, exactly. So I thought it would be worth mentioning. It was that or MacGruber. And we're gonna do MacGruber later. So
it's gonna piss so many people off. But,
I have so many. I was like side Googling MacGruber without trying to get myself spoilers, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna. Fun fact, y'all, we're gonna do a watch of that, and it's gonna be a fascinating time, I think.
So while you're going to give, a movie that we're not covering every week, I wanted to kind of bring a fun fact to the table about Val. And this week, I want to let you guys know he was apparently very good friends with 50 Cent. They did a movie together.
Oh, yeah. He gave him a car.
Blood. Yeah. It was like $100,000 Chevy Impala from the 60s or something, because they both connected over classic cars. So besties, apparently.
#besties. That's a good bestie to have. I like it. All right. We also have in this Miss Meg Ryan, which is I sort of forgot it was her actually. I have only seen this 2 or 3 times ever, and it's been a long time. And so I sort of forgot that she was in this. She's very like most people probably know her for her like rom-coms, you know what I mean? Like the You've
Yeah.
Got Mails and the When the Harry Met Sallies of the world. And
Yeah.
speaking of a sad one, City of Angels. Oh my God, that was so sad. I forgot that was her.
That's my
How
Johnny
was that?
Resnick. Not
It
as
was
good
like
as
a
my Jim
mumbly,
Morrison.
it was a very mumbly version, certainly. But anyways, she's in this. She plays his longtime partner, girlfriend, kind of open relationship, very complicated
I don't know if she
relationship.
knows it's an open relationship until halfway into the movie, but yeah, it gets there.
I mean, even when you're in an open relationship, unless the communication is super awesome and clear,
Yeah.
it's a recipe for some jealousy and things. And we definitely see that come to light here. But she plays real life Pamela Corson. We also have Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Ray, and I can never say, I always mess up his last name.
Manzarek?
Manzarek? Yeah.
Yeah.
Plays
The
Ray
mayor of
Manzarek.
Portland. Fun fact. If you watch Portlandia, he's the mayor.
I was going to say, what? This is
Yeah,
new information about his post-Doors career for me. Yeah, so he's been in a bunch of things, if you didn't know. Twin Peaks, I think, is one of the things he's most well known for, but he also was the original Dune, which we have talked about before. So
Paul
that's kind
Atreides, yeah. We covered the new Dune, but not the one from the whatever 80s or so.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then we also have Frank Whaley, who plays Robbie Krieger.
Do you know what I recognized him from?
What?
Pulp Fiction. Look at the big brain on Brett. He's the guy with the burger at the beginning, like the first kill in the movie. Spoiler, but yeah.
I love that. That's the first thing that you
I was
thought
like, I
of.
know this
Definitely
guy
not
from
what I thought
somebody
of.
and from somewhere, and there it was. Yeah.
That's okay. Well, he's also been in a number of other things but like one of the ones that is most highly rated for him that I haven't seen that I'm very curious about, and I wanted to ask you, Vacancy. Have you ever seen Vacancy?
No.
Okay. I have
You
questions.
have or haven't?
It looks interesting. I have not. That's
Okay.
what I wanted to ask. I'm curious. And then we also have Kevin Dillon, and he plays John Densmore of The Doors. He is Matt Dillon's, I think, younger brother. So they don't always look the same to me, but like sometimes I'll catch a quick glance and I'm like, oh, there it is. But he was also in Platoon. So, Oliver Stone coming in hot with some of his homies.
He was also in The Blob. Did Oliver Stone do The Blob? Was that one of his writer?
He did not do The Blob. Okay. I'm so sorry to inform. Yeah. But then we also have I wanted to mention her because she ends up taking some of the more, I don't know, unique, interesting scenes here. Kathleen Quinlan. She's been in a few things. She's one that she's kind of a character add-on actress, but she plays Patricia Keneally, who
she the blood orgy lady?
She's the blood orgy lady, but it is important to be clear that she's actually an amalgamation of a bunch of characters. She was supposed to be representative of kind of like the groupies and the female friends that hung around and some of the audience members.
Oh, so he didn't marry
He did do that ceremony with her, yes, but a bunch of her traits have been kind of thrown into this one person, which was really hurtful to her, the person, because she felt like they had an actual relationship. And so she has some of those groupie vibes and some of those other things that there's kind of rolled into her. She was really upset that it makes the film the orgy and also the neo-pagan hand fasting ceremony not look like he takes it as seriously. And she was really heartbroken by that because she felt like it was a sincere vow ceremony on their part. So, but yeah, she's kind of has some big moments in this one. So I thought she was worth
1991. I guess we weren't yet concerned about the Bechdel test. So they were like, just take every woman that exists and put them into this girl.
Put them into one person and that'll be her 100%. Yeah. And she was inspired by a couple of famous groupies as well. There's a couple different groupies. There's one, Pamela D. Burson, I think is her name. And then Penny Lane, who is mentioned in Almost Famous. So these are based on real people. And so she was supposed to be an aggregate of those folks as well here. But she's done a few things. One of the ones that I thought people might know her from is Apollo 13. She plays the wife of one of the astronauts. So looks very different than in this one. So Just clarifying. And that's all I had for cast, because there's actually, there's a fair amount of other people that come in and out, but those are kind of the key.
There's so many people
really.
you would recognize watching this, like the Michael Madsen, Billy Idol, a bunch of other folks. But yeah, I think you've touched on all the important ones.
And one thing I want to note from a overall film and production standpoint is that the soundtrack is the Doors. It is just the Doors. So even though Val Kilmer does do, and we're going to talk about this ad nauseum, all of his singing in this film, and he memorized all these songs, and he trained for, like we said, over a year, yada yada. The soundtrack itself does not have Val Kilmer on it. It is just Jim Morrison. Okay. So just so you know, and there's actually, the way that it was shot is kind of interesting. So like long shots are Jim Morrison's voice. So if you're like in the larger concert scenes and we're way back, they have worked in Jim Morrison's voice for those moments. But any close up or like closer to the stage is all Val Kilmer singing.
Yeah. And it shows, you can't tell the difference when you're watching this.
No.
To me, I couldn't. I read that before I started watching the film, and I couldn't tell the difference. It sounded almost exactly the same.
Yeah. And the bandmates say that. Even those who don't support this film, by and large, they all agree that he sounds eerily like him. Mm-hmm. Like they were like, we can't tell the difference. It's kind of crazy. So again, we gave you the spoiler warning. I'm just warning you because the plot summary, this was one of those that made me laugh out loud, because I was like, this is the spoileriest plot summary ever, courtesy of IMDb. Jim Morrison's life, from his LA film student days to his death in Paris. Val Kilmer delivers an uncanny portrayal with vocals indistinguishable from Morrison's originals. It depicts Morrison's journey as the iconic 60s rock frontman. So
they got
accurate.
Like, nearly all my compliments for the film, they got out of the way in the plot summary. So yeah.
It's true. They kind of like went hard in that summary. So if you didn't know what it was about, like now you do. But speaking of compliments or not compliments, this didn't do so great at the box office from a production standpoint. So it was $32 million was the budget. It made $34.4 million at the box office. And after marketing and all that, it only took about $800,000 home in terms of profit. So
yeah, I don't
not
know.
The most successful film.
This is such a weird thing to say, and I don't want to piss anybody off, but I was like watching this and I didn't know exactly who this movie was for outside of huge Doors fans, because
I don't even know if it's for them, because it's also a little bit wrong. And by a little bit, I mean there's a fair amount of it that's wrong.
Yeah. I think, it's been 33 years, 34 years, and we've had a ton of other music biopics. I feel like they've blown up in the last decade or so, and a lot have done it much better than this. And this thing seems to not decide whether it wants to. I know you've already pointed out inaccuracies, but it's like, does it want to just give you the raw, dirty, like all the negative things about this man's life? And it never really seems to lean into whether this is complete fact or whether it's this mythical, look at these visions he's having in his head. This is how he saw himself. This was his backstory of how this happened, but that's a fucking lie. So the whole Native American thing throughout was just weird to me when we've already established that didn't happen.
It didn't happen, but he asserted for much of his life that it did. So I think
Jim Morrison, that's what I think trust him.
But that's give a shit. But to that end, I think that's a great point to start us off on a couple of things. So first and foremost, like we said, there's a lot of inaccuracy here. There are multiple cooks in this kitchen too, and I think that it shows, right? So Oliver Stone consulted all the band, consulted Pamela Corson's family, consulted Pamela Keenely, her family as well. And so there were a lot of contributing voices to the end result of the script beyond just him and Jansen. But they wanted, for example, Pamela to be portrayed as an angel. She wasn't. They did have kind of a volatile, open relationship. She was, at the end of the day, a heroin addict by the end of their relationship, and potentially exposed Jim Morrison to heroin for the first time. So she's not an angel. She is his sole surviving heir. She and his family, and even though she died a few years later, yeah, she inherited, and his family, in probate, her family in probate inherited much of his estate because she was his common law wife and was his heir in his will and things like that. So they had a lot of influence, and they were apparently quite hard to deal with. So was Ray Manzarek. He does not, like, he disavows this film by and large. He says that it's so inaccurate, but everyone and their damn dog wrote a fucking memoir about this period in their life, is I think something to be aware of. And he wrote one of them, and he wanted it to be more accurate to that and like that source material. And his book was not the primary source material. And he's the one who went to film school with Jim Morrison, and he wanted to direct a film about Jim. So
he's a little salty, maybe.
And not even just Jim, about the Doors. Like, he wanted it to be about the Doors. And I think that that is something that is a fair critique of this film, is it spends so much time on Jim Morrison only.
Oh, it's a Jim movie. I even wrote out at the end, the epilogue doesn't mention the band. It just says Jim died, Pamela died, the end. Like, okay, there were 3 other members.
Like, why didn't we call this Mojo Rising? Why didn't we call this Jim Morrison? Why did we call this The Doors when we're not talking about them? And they had a truly collaborative, successful musical career together. They released 6, 7 albums, all of which had very strong reception from fans and critics alike. So the writing is good, the performance is good. You see that there's multiple contributors to the writing. He was their primary songwriter, but not the only one.
Yeah, they show you Robbie writing what was his first song at the
Light My Fire. And it's their first hit. It's their first hit on their first album, which is named The Doors. So it's their introductory album to the world. He writes the first single and the hit, and they do it together. You see them collab a little bit, but that's the last you get of that. And like, that super bums me out as like a classic rock fan and somebody who wants to dig more into that. I was like, we don't even get to see them really collaborate beyond this. And they definitely did. And they made some great music. And yeah, it just goes down into the Jim Morrison, like, drug induced show, you know?
Yeah. And it's just, to me, the subject matter is not interesting enough to merit that. And again, maybe it's just the fact that we've seen this so many times since. If you think about Rocket Man and you watch Elton John go down into like the depths of addiction and all these terrible things, and then like, we've seen it done, I think, many times since then, and honestly a couple times better than this does it. It's just not interesting to me to just watch a famous, like, the soundtrack's awesome, obviously, because it's The Doors, but the rest of it is just kind of like, okay, he is a rock star. Oh, he has addictions. He has volatile relationships, and now he's dead. There's not really many ups and downs. There's not even action beats in the story, I don't think.
And I forget, was this your first watch?
First watch of this, yeah.
Yeah, and see, I mean, to be fair, I actually probably disliked it more on this watch than the first time I watched it, because I saw it much closer to, not in 1991. I was, I think, 3 or 4. But I saw it, I want to say in high school, maybe even late middle school or something. So closer to it coming out, and not as many of these musical biopics out that have been really well done. So I think it still felt like a good time and an interesting watch. But since then, I agree with you. There's been a lot of them that have been done really well. And not perfectly, of course, but really well, and in ways that like work in the music more. And at least for me, that's kind of why I'm here, right? Like, I'm a classic rock fan. It's one of my favorite genres. It's why I want to watch something like this. It's why I love something like an Almost Famous, right? It's so well done, and it's such an homage to the music, and it has original work in it that is so true to the era and has incredible performances. And actually, I have notes in here that there's like notes of Almost Famous paying homage to this film a little bit, because Almost Famous does come after this, but they have a very like, I'm a golden god moment. They have the reporter at the gig. They have a Penny Lane kind of character. So, but again, some of those are like era based things, but they're good callbacks to this film, but that were done better. Like, they ultimately iterated on it and did it better. And Almost
we should have just watched the Motley Crue biopic. It's a worse movie. It's the same fucking plot as this, but it's a lot more fun.
It's so funny you say that, because multiple people have told me to watch that, and I'm like, it looks fucking insane.
It's the broiest version of this film. It's so broy, but I had more fun watching that than I did this. I will say this is a better movie, but yeah.
Well, I think the other thing to consider too is, like, I mean, going back really quick to the inaccuracies as they relate to Jim. Now, that is something I think could be interesting to explore, and they don't. So like, why does Jim Morrison tell this story for so long, right? He told the Native American car accident story. It evolved over the years. He at one point said they just saw it and it was very impactful to him. It was kind of the way you see it in the opening of the film, where he just sees it and goes by it and is very preoccupied by it. And then later it's that they were involved in the accident. You know, his dad did it and killed these people. And then, you know, it evolves over the years, and then he gets called out by this one journalist.
And nothing
But
comes out of it. She calls
and
him
nothing
out on
comes,
it, and it's like, no. He
and
just
she
kind of
doesn't
mumbles.
out him, and she doesn't,
Yeah.
you know, she just says, don't lie to me again. But why didn't we explore, like, why is that important to Jim? Why did that impact him so much? Why did he spend so much of his life telling this story? Because he is very obsessed with death, and it's implied that it's the result of this accident, like seeing this accident and being preoccupied by it. But he believed that this ghost of this elderly Navajo man had come into his body. Like, that they don't talk about that in any real way.
If I had to guess, we don't need to go into what drug experiences I have or haven't had on this podcast. But if I had to guess, the message that Oliver Stone is kind of setting through this is that it's what Jim believed in his head to be true based on all these drugs that he's doing, is like he's seeing all this happen.
But even that's more interesting. Like, talk to me about the trip.
Yeah,
talk to me about like
that. Yes, because I liked the concert scene. I liked the scenes where they would blend kind of Jim's imagination and how he was seeing it with his live performances, and it sort of blurred the lines of reality. Thought that was one of the more interesting parts of the film.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple moments where you see him kind of tripping, but you are external to it. You know, like you are, like when he's on stage, right? I'm not sure if you noticed this, but when he's high in some way, specifically high, not just drunk, he has contacts in that are super dilated. They make it look like he's almost has black eyes, right? Yeah. So, and if you notice, that's a lot of time he's on stage, his eyes are black. And so you're just observing him. And that's not the only place. There's multiple places, but you're not in his experience with him of getting high. It's once or twice, and it's very short-lived. And the I am a golden god moment is one of the few times, and I just refer it to that because I feel like it's so famous and in Almost Famous. But it's him getting on top of the car, jumping up there and saying like, I am the Lizard King, and starting, and the stars are going nuts behind him, and you spend a second there, but you don't spend that much time there. And I think what could be really interesting is like, have that be the running thread of like, what are the trips like at the various phases in his career? Because it slowly just evolves to he's just always drunk, or he's just always high. And you're just seeing it externally, and you're not at least getting like, how has it evolved? How has it changed? How much of like fame has impacted him, and is he afraid of the crowd? Is he angry at the crowd? So like one concert in particular where he's screaming at the crowd later, and when he gets arrested, like, wouldn't that have been more interesting to understand what is he maybe and it's fictionalized, fine, it's fictionalized, but what is he tripping about that's making him attack the crowd? Right?
I think he's like,
it feels like you're not following the story.
Yeah,
you know?
I hear what you're saying. I would assume that it's just this conflict internally of him, of he doesn't want them to be like a commercial success. It's kind of like the Kurt Cobain effect, right? Like, and I know he came after, but it was the same. I'm conflicted because I love playing music and I love this attention and I love the crowds and the energy at my shows, but at the same time, I don't want to be here. And I think they make it a point to have the audience yelling various things at him and just, hey, play this song, like the cat callers that you get every time you go to a rock show. And it's showing that sort of negative impact of it. So I kind of get what they're good, but I agree with you and it ties back to what I said before. I know I'm going like 4 different thoughts right now, but it ties back to what I said before. Who's this movie for? Because it feels like the first half glorifies drug use, alcohol, and this party lifestyle. And then the second half, it shows the negative impacts, but it doesn't really teach you a lesson. It's just, we still idolize him by the end of the movie of, he lived fast, he died young, like it was great. But I don't know. It feels like they couldn't make up their mind on how they wanted to portray it.
But I actually think it's kind of fitting that you're having 4 thoughts at once, because I think that's what this movie is doing, right? Like this movie is having a bunch of different thoughts. There's not a cohesive narrative here. And I'm not even saying it needs to be linear, right? Like there are ways to do a non-linear story really well. And they had, I think, a real opportunity to do that and have these flashbacks and have these other moments interspersed. And like you see these previews throughout the film that come to a head later when he's dying. But they didn't do them well. Like, I don't know how to describe it. They just didn't intersperse them well where the narrative feels cohesive. It does, again, not linear, but it doesn't feel cohesive. And you don't know what's happening from one jump to the next. And there's weird time jumps that are both short and too long.
Yeah.
And so you miss bits. And it's really important, I think, to note that the majority of this film takes place in the span of 6 years. And
Dude, the fact that we have a childhood shot in the first 5 minutes, or a made up childhood shot, and then we get to him in art school, and within 15 minutes, the doors have started, and then they're famous like 5 minutes out. It just moves way too quick at the beginning, and then it
That's what I
drags
mean.
for me the rest.
It's like 1945 and 1965 happen in 3.5 minutes. And then the rest of the film is like 67. Like literally, it's like 67-ish, 67, 68. You spend the bulk of your time in this 2.5 hour movie in there. And then all of a sudden, you've also jumped to 71, where is the year that he dies, right? So like the management of time, linear or otherwise, is not super well done. And I really wish we spent more time up front, because again, if you're going to focus on Jim, if you're going to make this whole fucking movie about Jim, fine. But like, what is his actual origin story? We are not doing that. We are not spending time at film school. We're not spending time with his family. We're not spending time understanding how he got here and why he quit film school beyond showing one short film that was like also all over the place, you know, like
he quits. And it's also just the band. You mentioned his origin story, the band's origin story. It seems like he says, I like writing poetry, and then 2 minutes later him and his friend talk, and they're like, we should make music, and then they sit down and write a hit song. Maybe it happened that organically, but I was like, can we have some moments of the band? Like, how did we find these other guys? How did they jam together?
He and Ray had been in film school together. Like, we don't spend any time of like, what are their conversations like? Like, what are they riffing off each other? What are the kinds of things they want to make? You get this nugget of him being the only person to compliment his film in this room of people who hate it, but you don't get any more of that. And you get a couple of nuggets of their intellectualism. And I wish we had spent more time with that, because these are smart, educated guys. Like, he went to University of Florida. He then went to California. Like, he knew William Blake and Godard and Dionysus and like, and Greek mythology. Greek mythology comes up multiple times, not just in the form of Dionysus. The Oedipus Rex complex that he literally sings on stage while he's tripping balls. That is a nerd-fueled acid trip. I need y'all to understand. Like, he is telling you the Oedipus Rex story of Oedipus, who kills his father and marries his mother and fucks her and doesn't realize until it's too late, and he then kills himself, right? Like, he's not promoting like fuck your mom. He is telling this Greek myth on stage. And I wish we spent more time understanding that he was a poet and an intellectual and an educated guy who wrote things accordingly. That's why his lyrics are what they are, and not just a drug-addled, alcoholic, profane man. Like, he's just tripping and he's saying profane things, but there's source material to this, is what I'm saying. And I feel like we did no digging into that.
And even outside of, you touched on something that outside of musicians, if you think about poets and artists in general, a lot of them tend to die young and sort of flame out. But if you're going to tell that story in a movie like medium, you got to have that be earned and really focus on like how great. You can't just jump right into 15 minutes into the movie, he's a rock star and now he's a mess and then he died. Like, really, you have to earn that upfront piece of look at him as a child, look at him as a teenager, look at how this band came together. So I'm with you. I feel like we're focusing a lot on the negatives of this film. So I'd like to transition and say, I guess right off the bat, I feel like the Doors music is better if you're high. I feel like this movie's probably the same, but the visuals are really, really cool. I think Oliver Stone does a really good job with some of the time lapse of the moon and things like that. But yeah, the visuals are cool.
The visuals are cool. I think there's some good, like, just some really classic, beautiful LA settings that are always beautiful to see. You have like some Venice Beach stuff in that community that's really beautiful. You have just that time where he's writing and exploring this area that feels really a little bit nostalgic. You know, it's really, it's kind of a cool period to kind of just look back on and see their rise. And you get a couple quick nuggets too that I think are really sweet of the four of them, where they're having like that moment where they're writing in the house on Venice Beach, and they, you know, Ray's like, let me write the intro, and they go out and they just talk and they walk on the beach and stuff like that. So there's some really like a couple nuggets of that sweet and collaborative moment with them that are really nice to appreciate in these beautiful environments. And I think it's really well shot in those moments for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff in here to like. I didn't love of all the Doors songs to have performed in full. I didn't think This Is the End or The End was the one that I would go with. It's just so lengthy, and I get what they're going for of showing him be very artsy and thoughtful and like spouting a lot of stuff, and to your point, a very intelligent amount of insanity on stage. But that scene took 5 days to fucking shoot and 24 takes, and I don't think it's worth it. I felt really bad when I saw that. But,
and Val Kilmer was like, his voice was shot, like that's part of why it took so long, is they had to let his voice recover between takes, because he was just like, raging up there. And he practiced so hard and his voice sounds so good, but he's not a trained singer. He doesn't know how to take care of his voice. It was a rough shoot and he was super exhausted by the end, by all accounts. But I thought it was an interesting choice. Certainly. I also, like, on the note of music, two things. One, about that song, as I was listening to it this time, and I don't know why this is the first time I thought about this, but there's the line in there of like, take a face off the wall and go kill a man.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, is this the inspiration for Game of Thrones and the Hall of Faces?
We'll have to ask George R. R. Martin when we have him on.
I know, I have so many questions. I'm like, George R. R. Martin, are you a Doors fan? Is that where this came from? Anyway, so
he'll do anything to avoid writing that next book. So we could.
He will literally. We can get him. Yeah. We can get him on this podcast tomorrow. Probably. You're 100% right. But anyways, I just thought that was an interesting one that I heard that time when they did the full performance. I was like, oh, okay. But the other. Yeah, but the other thing is, like, Light My Fire, yes, it's fun and it's a good song and whatever, but I was so fucking over it by the end of this movie. And also, John Densmore at the beginning is like, it sounds like the Byrds, and it doesn't quite sound like a lot of their later music. It's the most like hit single type of song.
I mean, maybe that's what they were going for, to make you kind of sick of it, because by the end, when you see it in the commercial and Jim gets pissed, that is very intentional. He breaks the TV. He does say just kidding, so it's all a joke, but it's all a joke. Like, there were a couple good laughs in this.
In terms of accuracy, that is one of the things that is accurate. He did smash a TV in a recording session
because of the commercial, or was it just how he smashed a TV?
He smashed a TV, and I don't remember if that's the reason, but Ray Manzarek, like, that's one of the few things that he's like, yeah, that's right, because he wrote it actually. And again, there are 13 memoirs about this period, and in his, he mentions that he broke this TV. So he could be quite ragey, and multiple people actually refer to him. And one in particular, and I can't remember who it was, but one in particular called him just a real Jekyll and Hyde character. And what I wish we saw more of was the Dr. Jekyll of it all, right? Like, because Dr. Jekyll was smart and caring and all those things like we're talking about, but
how many scenes do we get where he's actually sober and like?
There's almost none. And there's like one of the only charming scenes in the later film is when he's playing with the kids at the birthday party. Yeah. But he's trashed there too. Falls asleep. And so, but like, that's what they were saying. They were like, the man that I knew and loved was not in this movie. Like, yes, he was a Jekyll and Hyde character. And when he was Hyde, this is accurate, but it wasn't the whole of him. This wasn't the only thing that he was.
There was that really sweet scene at the beginning. So, Mackenzie, when's the last time that a guy followed you home and climbed a tree and said you were the one, and then sneaks into your bedroom and grabs your leg?
So glad you brought this up. Oh my God.
She's trying to get murdered. She wants to be a victim of a serial killer. She's
literally
way ahead of the
my
trend.
Second note on this whole film is, oh, okay, stalker behavior. Like, and she just chuckles about it and thinks it's like charming and funny. And there's so many references to the Doors in this film. And one of them is like, what, you got a problem with doors? And he's like, they're a waste of time. And it's like, he climbed onto your balcony. He followed you home from the beach. He has invaded your space and now told you you're the one within 10 seconds of meeting her, and kisses her. And I have in all caps in my notes, you let him kiss you?
This is like, I wonder if that was true. Do you know if that's true from like the stories and stuff? Did Pamela ever write about that? Is that how they met?
I don't think we know. I mean, I've never read anything about it being true or untrue, but I don't know if we know.
If that's fictionalized, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that did more to encourage the male fantasy than the manic pixie dream girl that we talked about with Eternal Sunshine. Like,
Truly,
is this what
truly.
guys think girls want? Because
If I just follow a
yeah.
girl home and kiss her, she's gonna be into it and hang out with me for
I
6
was more
years.
freaked out when he sneaks into her bedroom when she's in bed with her boyfriend, grabbing her leg, like, sneak out with me. That is so fucked up.
Grabbing her leg. And she just is like, okay.
Yeah.
And he could be a murderer. What are you talking about? Like, why are you leaving your home in the middle of the night to go with some other guy? I also love that her boyfriend comes over right after he kisses her. He didn't see that part, but he comes over right after he kisses her and is like, who's that? And she's like, I don't know. Like, what? Just fucking nothing? Nothing? Oh, it was wild behavior. And I was like, he must have had like, which I think is true based on, one, how he gets famous, and two, lots of comments of the time. He had to have had some real like aura or energy about him to get away with that kind of shit. Cause that's fucking wild. That's wild behavior.
When you're attractive, I was like, he's a 10, so he's allowed to do this kind of shit. I don't know. Maybe it's just the 60s were a different time and it was like free love and all that. But I got shades of when we covered Blue Valentine and we see Michelle Williams fall in love with the Ryan Gosling character, who's super impulsive and all these things. And it's very charming at first, but over the course, and I think it's the same here, where over the course of the relationship, she's realizing, oh, he's cheating on me with everyone. And even though he says he loves me, he's doing all this other weird shit. And then we see it flame out. That Thanksgiving fight and the when she's on heroin for the first time and he sets the closet on fire, I thought that those might be the best scenes in the movie, honestly, for a movie about concerts.
Certainly the most compelling scenes in the movie, for sure. The Thanksgiving scene, I remember I turned to Skylar and I was like, this is why you don't go to a druggy house on Thanksgiving. You're never going to eat dinner. Like, it's just never going to manifest, either because it doesn't get made because people forget, or they throw it across the room in a fight. And how anticlimactic on Thanksgiving. There's not much open, you know what I mean? So I felt really sad for the people there. But yes, their dynamic was like, it just came to a head. But again, like, she did the same shit. It's actually that scene. It's the hotel scene where they fight, which gets really gross as well. And then the fire in the closet scene. Like, I think it really informs how volatile their relationship could be, and by all accounts really was, but that they did it to each other, not to defend him at all. But they were very much both participating in that dynamic,
For sure.
But the fire scene, that is shot, to your point, that's shot really well and really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's very, I mean, the fact that she gets out of there in the state that she's in also is kind of amazing. You kind of wonder.
And I were talking, I was like, if I was tripping, I would just die. I would be so scared of like what was going on in front of me.
Like, to run at the flame while you're tripping. Like, how are you gonna, and even to like work up the energy and the awareness that this is actually happening. I just thought that was wild. But I agree. Those are some of the more interesting shots in the film, for sure.
Also, do feel like you need to call out, I've never done heroin, everybody. So when I say tripping, I'm not talking about, the last time I did. I feel like I've made that joke in the last couple weeks.
He's like, there's a lot of allusions to drug use here, and I just want to be super clear about what we have and have not done. I think you just have to give people your drug resume, or nobody's going to believe you. You know what I mean? But whatever.
What did you think, like, when we roll into the climax and we get to that final concert that they do? I consider that the climax, and the rest seems to be falling action, but where they sort of, all their gigs get canceled because of this, and like he gets arrested and whatnot. What was your take on that final sort of scene?
Well, that's a couple things. One, that is kind of how his life ended. It is almost very anticlimactic. I mean, he had this indecency trial. He was charged with all these things. He was convicted. He was posthumously pardoned, but he was in the middle of an appeal when he just fucking bailed to Paris. And by all accounts, it was to get sober, like to get out of LA and the scene and blah, blah, blah. And him and Pamela were both going there to get sober. But she was still a heroin addict at this time. And the concern is that this is either the first time that he was introduced to heroin and he overdosed, or he had become an addict with her and around her, even though he historically like hated heroin and thought it was, really bad. they do think like she potentially got him to do it at some point. We will never really know what he actually died of, sadly, because the Parisian authorities just said that he died of heart failure and they did not do an autopsy. So, and the only account we have of the situation is Pamela's account, which has changed several times. Like, even in the 3 years until her death, she told several versions of that story that were all different. So it's very unclear, but I think it is very clear that even if his heart failed, let's assume that's true, it's because of this. He destroyed his body. Like, he did these drugs. He drank himself to death. And, so, but the reason I think it's kind of problematic, that last scene actually, is he looks perfect. He looks
I didn't understand that. Yeah, we just saw him in the
healthy.
studio with that fake ass beard on, but then when he's dead, he's skinny and like clean
He's
shaven.
skinny and clean shaven, and his skin is fucking glowing. Like, he's supposed to be dead, and he looks arguably as good or the best he's looked the whole movie. And I was like, I'm not, again, to your point, it glamorizes and makes him feel like this hero at the end.
Yeah,
and
like, oh,
this
this is how we
rock
want him
god.
to be remembered.
And it's so romantic and beautiful, and it's not. He was 27 years old, you guys, and that is fucking heartbreaking for somebody of his talent and skill, for anybody, but especially somebody we've seen him make this incredible work. And so, yeah, I didn't love that we romanticized that moment at the end,
especially when he was so body positive. There's nothing wrong with being a large mammal. I laughed maybe 3 times this whole movie, and that was one of them. So,
and you know what's funny, if you read about that, they were like, Val Kilmer had to be very intentional about how he gained weight because he needed to be able to like play the skinny rock god on stage, but then show his belly later. And I was like, what do you mean? He targeted that his belly would be the only thing that grew as he gained weight. I thought that was such a crock of shit when I read that. I was like, what do you mean he gained weight in his belly only? But, he looks great in most of this movie, to be fair. He looks fabulous. And then he has this one little, like, let me just show my belly.
Are you a fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia? You ever watch that?
I've only seen like a couple episodes. I haven't seen it all.
But Rob McElhenney, who is traditionally like jacked, he's in great shape. But he thought, like, he had a season where he said, I'm just going to get fat because I think it's funny. And so he tried to gain a bunch of weight, but literally it just all went to his stomach. So his arms are still ripped and his chest is still pretty tight, but he's just got this huge pot belly throughout that season. And then he shredded it all right back off like a season later.
To be fair, I think that's maybe the dad bod incarnate. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I feel like dads just grow bellies. Like, they don't grow the whole shebang. They just get a belly.
I mean, I'm here for it, so I'm doing my best to get there.
He's like, I'm actively trying.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just think, like, I don't love that we glamorize that. I also don't love that it seems like it's his, the culmination of his obsession with death, right? It's like, they kind of position it in the film as if he's been leading up to this moment very intentionally. Like, he's been waiting to die. And they show, him and Pamela on the roof, almost going off the roof. And of course he talks about it constantly. And he says we could just end things. We could go to the next place, and the peace that will be there, and all those kinds of things. And I'm not saying, like, listen, death comes for us all. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But I just think, again, it is very romanticized, and it could be, I don't know, it could, lead people to feel like taking your own life is the way to go. And he alludes to that several times. And I don't love us promoting that and romanticizing that in this movie.
Yeah. I
did wear, speaking of his obsession with death, I did wear my Deathly Hallows shirt today.
I thought you were going to have on a Doors shirt. And it's like, no, Harry Potter.
I don't, I tried, but I didn't have a Doors shirt. And I felt like it was appropriately nerdy and also a Dead reference. So here we are. He wanted to be the master of death. He never found all 3 Deathly Hallows. And I think that's the problem. If he had found them all, it would have been better. Would have been fine.
I bet Draco Malfoy is a big Doors fan and he thinks it's super deep. Smoking shitty weed, and I do like that. I'll say I like the Doors, but I don't think they're as deep as some people might think.
I think they were trying to be deep. I think it was like, you know what it is? It's that freshman in college deep. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's that I have just taken my first philosophy course. I am also in a required Greek mythology class at the same time. and I'm taking shrooms and I'm so intellectual and free and I've never been this way before. Let's write a song about it. You know?
It's there's a market, and I do like some of the Doors stuff. And the same way with Pink Floyd too. I can respect Pink Floyd. I like experimental music where it is just, hey, let's go into a room, do some drugs, make some noise. I think there's a time and a place for that. It's never going to be my favorite band. But to that point, what I wanted to do was after I watched this, I pulled it up on Letterboxd and was giving it my rating, but also looking at other reviews. And it was funny that for it being a 6 point whatever out of 10, a lot of the top reviews were negative. And just, it's not that I agree with all of these, but they made me laugh more than the movie did. So I wanted to read a couple if I can. So this may, tying into what we were just talking about, this may actually be a perfect cinematic representation of the music of the Doors. Overlong, repetitious, and centered around an unlikable asshole spouting junior high level poetry. That's pretty much in line with what
wowzers, harsh, just straight. I give him freshman in college, you know, like that was rough.
And then the last tying into, this is how I kind of felt. Dialogue in movie, quote, "So you're really going to move to Paris," unquote. Me, "Oh, thank God he's almost dead."
That's a really good one. I'm not going to lie. Like, because I actually really had that moment. Because y'all, if nothing else, this movie is super fucking long.
Yes.
Which is so Oliver Stone, I can't. He needs an editor. This man needs an editor and he doesn't have one. I don't know. But anyway, it's so long. And so, yes, when I saw 1971 and we're moving to Paris, I was like, yep, he's about to die. Like, any more good ones? We don't have any good.
I didn't look at any of the positives. Roasting? I was only looking at the negatives. I apologize. Let me see.
He was like, I'm looking for the ones that will validate my opinion.
Okay. Well, this is, again, kind of in line with what we said. Kilmer rules, but truly one of the most tiresome films ever made. And I agree with that. The music is good. Val Kilmer's awesome. It's just an exhausting, repetitive film.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like, it's so tropey. Like, we made this great cocktail, but it's so tropey that he's like literally walking around with a bottle the whole time.
Yeah.
You're like, he just wasn't doing that. And this movie was not about the Doors, and it wasn't even about Jim Morrison. It was about Jim Morrison, the addict.
Yeah.
Of various kinds. And that's
you don't get any real insight to him as a person outside of he liked drugs and he did drugs. The end.
Yeah, it's so narrow and boring, you know, and there's some good shots and there's some good songs and there's some like sex, drugs, and rock and roll vibes to it. But like, that's not going to fuel a 2.5 hour movie. I'm sorry. It just won't. You got to do more with that. And he just didn't.
Agreed.
Anyway. Okay. Well, all that to say, I do think that you should watch this. I know it is tiresome. I know it is long. I will probably never watch it again because I think this was my third watch, but I do think his performance is worth seeing, is what I think I would say. It's especially, again, in homage to Val Kilmer and his work. Like, I think it's some of his work that you should see. You know, it's very well done.
I completely agree with that. I think if we're talking ratings, you guys know if I put something at a 5, that basically just means like, you know, if you're a fan of the genre, if you're a fan of like this actor goes, I would put this at a 5.5. For as much as we criticized it, I think the performances are not just Val's, but there's a lot of really good performances in this.
There are. Yep.
I think Oliver Stone, like the visuals, the moon, there's a shot early on for 1991. I wrote down when it goes from daytime to nighttime and the moon kind of appears, there's this color shift. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool for 91. It's not a time lapse, but he just cleanly converts a shot from daytime to nighttime. I thought that was neat. I thought the shot at the end in the final concert when he's following the camera and the crowd around him is gathering. And it's just this really long shot of him being in the shit before obviously like he passes away. So there are things to like, and especially if you like the Doors, I think you'll really enjoy this. If you don't know anything about the Doors, I don't know how you'll feel about it. So all that to say, I'm putting this on the positive side. I don't think you will like
it if you don't like the Doors at all. Like, I just don't think you'll
Then you should just go watch the Motley Crue movie. You'll have a much better time.
There you go.
But yeah, I think 5.5 is where I'm falling. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, I was like 5.5, 6. I like to actually gut check this when we're done talking about it sometimes because I feel like it helps inform what I actually think about it. Because my immediate was a 6, like at the end is what I put in my notes. But Yeah, I'm very frustrated at the end of the day with the lack of real Doors material and Jim Morrison material. And, and I like that they showed his grave in Paris at the end just as kind of a good wrap up
with all the graffiti and the lipstick and stuff on it.
But even that is so depressing in its own way to me. Like, I've actually seen this grave in Paris. I went among others, and also the bust is gone now. It was stolen years and years ago, but when I was there, there was actually less graffiti. The family has asked multiple times for the graffiti to be cleaned because they are, again, defiling other people's graves in doing this. So I think that's kind of fucked up. Romanticizes yet again his downfall and his death, and like, that's not the note that I want to end on personally. So, and then it's just like that little postscript I had totally forgotten about, of like, he dies of heart failure, and by the way, Pam dies 3 days later, peace. And I was like, yeah, not a single word about the rest of the Doors. So that was kind of the cherry on top for me of like, okay, we didn't watch a movie about the Doors. We watched a movie about Jim Morrison. Anyway, so yeah, I would say like 5.5.
It's funny because I'm the same as you. I started at a 6 coming into this, but after talking about it more, I'm like, I'm dropping this a half point because I clearly did not have that great of a time with it. And I do not regret watching it, like you said, but I'm never going to watch this again.
No, same. But good job, Val. We're very proud of you. Excellent performance.
What a way to kick it off.
What a way to kick off the month. I do think it's worth watching. If you're going to experience a Val Kilmer filmography, like, you do need to include this for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining and listening to us bitch about this movie for 45 minutes. It was actually fun to go back through this process, I will say, and just kind of rewatch it. I am so fucking excited though for next week's episode, because we're already doing
MacGruber. Ooh.
Shut up. Don't rain on my parade right now. I am so excited. We are doing our first Western, you guys. We are doing Tombstone. We have wrangled Lamar into doing Tombstone. It is not only our first Western, which I'm so excited about, but it is one of the best. And it is truly one of Val Kilmer's greatest performances. Hand down, it's the greatest time. Anyway, I'm so excited. Come back next week if you want to hear me just fucking fangirl for an hour, because I just... Get ready. That's what I'm going to do. In the meantime, follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things on Instagram and TikTok. You can also always catch the visual portion of the program on YouTube or on Spotify video, which now is a thing. Or not if you don't want. My hair's kind of crazy today, so feel free.
Well, now you got to go watch it on YouTube. Give us 2 views. That'll up our exposure. But yeah, just interact with us. We'll always reply to DMs, comments, anything wherever we're at. So we love the audience engagement, and just let us know what you thought of the episodes. You can also email us at wedrinkandwewatchthingspod@gmail.com.
Indeed. All right. Well, for now though, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is a good one. They should go drink this.
I was nursing this. It's very good.